Okay, welcome to this deep dive. Our goal today is really to unpack the material you've shared with us. We're looking at energy, exuberance, and how you manage your day-to-day energy. We've got some personal notes here, a definition, an image, even a quote. So quite a mix.
Yeah, it's an interesting collection. What strikes me right off the bat is you start with rambunctious.
Hmm.
That definition describing uncontrolled exuberance, it sets a kind of wild baseline.
Right, like this big untamed energy idea. But then, you immediately pivot in your notes. Your personal experience sounds, well, pretty different from that. Let's dig into that a bit. What are your notes telling us about your typical energy state?
Well, the main thing that comes through is this feeling that being most alive, really full of energy, it doesn't happen all that often for you. It feels like your daily energy is largely spoken for, used mainly just to get by.
Just to get by.
Mm.
That phrase really stands out. It suggests energy is more like fuel for basic functions, not something extra for like spontaneous joy. You even ask yourself, does that mean I do too much? Probably.
Yeah, it raises that question, doesn't it? Like maybe your standard daily output just uses up everything. It makes it tough to build up any reserve for something more. You mentioned it's hard to save up energy for a burst, saying it's just not my style. And there's even that thought about, well, maybe a fear of not using a burst wisely if you had one.
That's a really interesting wrinkle, not just about having the energy, but being strategic or maybe anxious about deploying it. But at the same time, your notes also mention needing sustained energy, especially for work, right? Dealing with customers.
Mhm.
And you mentioned needing coffee to help maintain that level.
Exactly. And sort of within that context, you also talk about those rarer moments when you feel in the zone, when things just click and you feel really on top of things.
Yeah, those in the zone times sound like a real contrast to just getting by.
Yeah.
You make a point, you say, of appreciating them when they happen. They're not frequent, but you notice them.
hmm And connecting to that, there's another thing in your notes about external factors. You mention your boss specifically, being unexpectedly nicer lately. And you wrote, her good vibe around me does help me sustain my energy.
Oh, that's fascinating. Recognizing that connection, how someone else's positive energy can actually prop up your own. And it leads you to thinking about just accepting things, like your boss's shift in attitude without needing the full story, just focusing on, staying where you want to be.
Yeah, it really underscores that energy isn't purely an internal thing. It's influenced by your surroundings, your interactions, and sometimes, good shifts just happen and you can kind of ride that wave without overthinking it.
Okay, so let's bring in the other pieces you shared. Because they offer a different angle. We have that Jack London quote, you can't wait for inspiration, you have to go after it with a club. Pretty forceful. And then that image the person cooking, just totally going for it, mid-spin, sauce flying, music probably blasting. That seems to capture that rambunctious energy we talked about at the start.
Totally. These sources kind of throw a different idea into the mix. Like maybe it's about active pursuit, maybe even embracing a bit of chaos or, joyous effort to generate energy, not just manage what you've got.
Yeah. So pulling all this together, you've got your day-to-day reality, which often feels like energy is just for getting by. You
Yeah.
need sustained energy, sometimes helped by coffee.
Yeah.
You value those rare in-the-zone moments. External vibes can give you a real boost. But then you also have these prompts, the quote, the image suggesting a more, well, aggressive or proactive approach, maybe even a wilder one.
Yes, exactly. It's that tension, isn't it, between carefully managing your energy in what feels like a demanding routine, and then the possibility of these other states flow, getting a lift from outside, or maybe actively chasing a different kind of energetic feeling, like that cook.
Right. So thinking about this whole picture, the careful energy management, the call to go after it with a club, those brief moments of flow, here's something to maybe reflect on. If going after it with a club doesn't mean forcing some wild exuberance you don't actually feel, what could that proactive approach look like for you? Specifically, maybe in trying to cultivate or even just extend those moments when you do feel in the zone, even if they feel few and far between right now.